Good morning everyone, it is Wednesday morning, so it's time for our level 1 mat class where we have a bit more of an emphasis on back care. So this is perfect for those of you who have a non-specific back issue, maybe caused by everyday life, different posture, maybe from sitting a lot, but it's more that you have not got a spinal injury or condition there. Those of you who are joining in this class who do have a spinal issue or condition, and I have seen you and you know how to exercise yourself safely, then please do make sure that you listen for the modifications and that you work with them. Just listening to your bodies and making sure that we're never ever working through pain or discomfort. Effort is great, but not pain or discomfort. Pain tells your body that something is happening that we don't want to be happening. So always making sure we listen to our bodies. So you're taking part in this class at your own risk, and we want to make sure that everyone stays safe and well while we're doing it. So do make sure that you have a nice, safe, clear working area, no trip hazards. We can stay nice and safe. And if you think you will need maybe a chair to help you with some balance work, or something to prop yourself on if we're doing 4-point, if you don't like being down on your wrists, or if you don't like kneeling, it might be that you want to come into seated to do some of those, so maybe a hard back chair would be a great idea. Now this morning we are going to be using a resistance band for some of the exercises. If you haven't got a resistance band, don't worry. You can use some light hand weights, so I wouldn't really go more than 1 kilogram, or you could use a couple of tins out of the cupboard. But please do make sure that you keep your back safe when you pick them up and put them down, even if they're only light. Please do come into a squat, neutral spine, pick them up close to the body and back up, and the same when you put them back down. So before we start, if you are using a band, could you please just hold it up and just inspect the edges, that you haven't got any nicks or tears. Last thing we want is that band snapping on you while we're working. So we want to just make sure it's in good working order. Alright, we're not going to need it for the warm-up, so let's pop it out of the way where we're not going to trip over it. Please do remember, as with all of the exercises, if you don't want to use the resistance band, if it feels too much and it's causing discomfort, just pop it to the side. You can do that movement without the band or without the weights perfectly well. Okay, so make sure that you're keeping safe. Right, let's make a start. I would like you, if you would, to just bring yourselves into your good standing posture. So we have our heels under our hip bones. Check that your toes are level and your feet are parallel. Okay, really important so that we can get good alignment when we bend those knees. We're pulling up through the legs but without locking those kneecaps back. So can you just notice the tension across the top of the kneecap? Does it feel pulled right into the thigh bone? If it is, can you just let that kneecap drop and soften without the knees bending? Okay. From there, let's take hands onto the hips, so find that hip bone that wraps around, we're holding onto the pelvis, and we're just going to allow the pelvis to dip forward slightly at the top, and then could you take a breath out and just pull that back up, and as you do so, can you grow taller? So let's inhale, allow the pelvis to dip forwards, and exhale, pulling up. So we're not forcing this movement, it's very small and gentle. Could you keep that going for me? Inhale to dip, exhale to pull up. So what I'd like you to notice as you're doing that is that when you exhale, you feel that you're drawing all the abdominals in, all the way up, and lifting that rib cage up away from the hips. So we're getting a nice strong connection into this core. Because if you just pull in at your waistband, pulling in at the tummy button, then you're only going to get a small area of muscle working, and we need all of that on board to help protect our backs. Okay, so just nice and gentle. And just notice if you're using your glutes to do that, are you squeezing your bum? Okay, try and make it abdominal. Now we're going to take one last one and hold it. So can you hold that there? Can you lengthen out of the hips a little more? Feel some more core activation. Ribs are down and the chin is back. Let's relax those shoulders. And we're going to come into a little sway. So I'd like you to just press into the toes and then press into the heels. As you press into the heels, really watch for those knees locking. So what we're trying to do is maintain this line from the earlobe to the ankle. So we don't bend at the waist, don't bend at the hips, so you might need to make it really small. And just notice in your body what's activating as you do that. Keep the breath flowing. It can be very tempting here to hold your breath, especially as you sway backwards. But I find a strong breath out really helps on that sway back to get the core switching on. So lift out of the hips, exhale. Let's do one more each way. Can you take the arms out? And can you sway back and squeeze the shoulder blades together? That's a bit more challenging, isn't it? Okay, from there, coming into an arm float, let's lift from the little finger and back down. And just see how that feels. How are your shoulders feeling today? So the reason why we lift from the little finger is so that we can get some good activation here. So can you keep that movement going for me? Both arms, and stay lifting out of the hips, core switched on. So if I lead with my thumbs, most likely thing to happen is that I feel all the tension up in the top of my shoulders, which is where most of us already have a bit too much tension anyway. So let's lead with the little finger. Right, let's add a foot pedal into that. And we're going to lift one heel and press forwards and roll back down. Just waking things up. Remember, if you have any issues with your feet, particularly bone spurs, arthritis or bunions, you might want to take this very gently. We're just aiming to keep those joints mobile. It might be that gradually your range of movement will increase, but it might be that we just want to keep it moving and nourished. Let's do one more each leg. And down. Now we're going to go for opposite arm. Could you come all the way up onto the big toe without that hip lifting? Okay, feel that hamstring switch on. Can you swap your heel for your toe? Could you pick that back up and roll back down? So I'm going to turn to face the front. We're going to go side to side. So what I want you to do is make sure that as you do that, you're not sitting into your hip. We stay pulled up and we roll back down. Peeling that foot off the floor, striking the heel and feeling that little moment of balance. Suspended. So yes, centre of gravity changes, but we're keeping everything pulled up and switched on. So if I let my core go, it's a lot harder to stay balanced and I'm not feeling any activation. If I pull up, I can feel a really good switch on of that core. And back down. One more and then we're going to move this on. We're going to add in a little rocking movement. So let's peel up. Strike the heel. Go a bit further out this time. Can you roll onto that foot? Lift the heel at the back. Roll back, lift the toes, pick it up and step it in. Peel up. Forwards, rock. And back, and in, peel up, strike, and we're going to rock, and rock back. So you can have as much movement and effort going through that foot as you want, as feels comfortable. So if you can, you could really lift that heel and press into the toes. If it doesn't feel good, just take it gently. Let's do one more each side. And down, last one. And down, fantastic. Okay, from there, stay in hip distance. Could you lift out of your hips for me and just take a little side reach and up. Now just notice how your back feels for this. Does it feel okay? Keep the breath flowing. You might find that you've held your breath if you notice it. So I want you to keep that breath flowing. Now this is a lift out of the hips. I'm not pushing down. I'm reaching out and keeping the hips still. Now if it feels good for you, if your neck is okay, so osteoporosis, osteopenia, spondylolisthesis, keep your arms down. If it feels good for you, can you take them behind the head, chin back, elbows wide and shoulders down? Can we come back to that side bend? Feels a bit more effort with the arms here. Neck issues, you could maybe take your arms across your chest instead, and that would be a little bit more challenging. Let's do one more to each side. And then reach the arms wide and down. Right, from there we're going to start to swing the arms. See how this feels. So not too high. We're also thinking about lifting that back arm without rolling the shoulder inwards. Think about keeping the chest open. So we're going to be doing a bit of shoulder work today. We want to get those shoulders nice and warm. Now if this feels okay, stay here. If you feel you're ready to move on, just let the shoulders start to turn a little. Just a little, so it's a rotation of the rib cage. We're not forcing it, you're just going gently through your natural range of movement. Just keeping that spine nourished and able to move. Let's do one more each way. Now it might be if you've got spine conditions, particularly osteoporosis, osteopenia, disc issues, that you might want to just stay with this gentle amount of rotation. You might want to let the hips move a little as well. But if none of those apply to you, could you turn the palm and lift higher? Is that shoulder still down? And let's go to the other side. Turn and stretch. And down. Big breath in. So the hips move if you have spinal conditions. The hips stay fixed if it's non-specific back issues and you just need to work on that core a bit more. Let's do one more each way. Breath in and out, other way, and down. Let's give those shoulders a roll. Okay, from there we're going to come into a little squat. We're staying with the feet hip distance, so you're sending your hips back and pushing up. And we're focusing on keeping that spine neutral. Okay, so not overarching or tucking under as you come into that squat. If you're not sure, take your hands into your back. You'll feel those muscles move, but you shouldn't feel that your pelvis changes orientation. Okay, the whole body is hinging forward rather than the pelvis tilting independently. So we're coming into that squat, knees are going over toes, we're lowering those hips at the same rate, arches are lifted, chin nodded. Let's do one more, and pushing up. Okay, it's time to grab your band or your weights. So nice and safely, we've already checked our band to see if it's in good condition. We're going to hold it fingers down, so just tuck your thumb in, fingers down. Remember, you can do this without the band. Now, feet hip distance. If you want more of a challenge and you haven't had a hip replacement, you could take your feet together if that feels okay. Let's lift and lengthen out of the hips. We're going to take a breath in and just pull the band apart slightly. And down. Now we're going to exhale as we do that. Exhale. Breath out. If you need to, you could grab it with your fingers as long as you don't add the thumb into that. So you can pull apart here if you haven't got sufficient grip, holding it the other way. Right, now we're going to add a wrap round. I'd like you to think about squeezing your shoulder blades together. As we do that, let's keep the ribs down and the chin back. So I'm going to turn sideways. We're going to pull out, take a breath in. Now can you think of wrapping that band around the legs as you exhale? Inhale. Big breath in, long exhale. Grow taller. Squeeze the bottom of the shoulder blades together. Can you keep that going for me? I'll just explain what could be happening. You could be pulling up into the top of the shoulders and feeling it all pinch up here. So could you think about lengthening down if that's happening before you squeeze back? You might find that your bottom rib pushes forwards and you're leaning back to do it. So if that's happening, could you take a strong breath out and try and keep those ribs down? And the same with the chin. It might be tempting to push that chin forwards and tense the neck. We want to try and keep the chin back and over the collarbones. Let's do one more. Pull and wrap round and release. Fantastic. From there, let's take it across the palms now. Now just watch for locking the elbows and wrists out. You want the inside of the elbows just slightly soft and facing forwards. Now we're going to be pulling out just to 30 degrees. So if that's easy with your band, tighten it up. If you're struggling to get there, loosen the band off. Have a bigger loop, because your band might be a slightly different resistance from mine. So I want you to feel it's a bit of an effort to get to there, but it's not so much that it's pulling the wrists. Fingers want to stay in line with the arm. Exhale now. As you do that, could you start to squeeze your knees together and lift the pelvic floor? Inhale, release. Exhale, grow taller. Squeeze the knees together, lift the pelvic floor. And down. Let's do a couple more. And down. One more. Now can we hold? Could you give me some little pulses? 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2 and 1. And release. Fantastic. From there, I'm going to do a bit more shoulders. What I'd like you to do is step onto the band with one foot. Just give that band a pull and check that it is under securely. It's not going to ping anywhere. And we're going to take the other hand. You're going to hold that band at your hip. Now just check you haven't turned the body. Square to the front, stood up really tall. Let's take a breath in. We're going in to draw the sword. Let's pull the hand up to the bottom of the ribs and you can see the elbow out of the corner of your eye. Inhale back to the hip. Exhale, pulling out. So it's a pull out, not up. Keep that going for me. Exhale. So do make sure you can see that band out of the corner of your eye and you're not pulling round. So this is out to the side. We're working the shoulder cap here. Keep thinking about lengthening that body. Let's do a couple more. And one last one. Now, we're going to use the band now under the foot to work the core on the opposite side. So again, we're going palm forwards, keeping the elbow turned to the front, standing tall, and as you exhale, you're going to lift. We're going to go a bit higher. Now, can you feel this side switch on and back down? So what it's doing is it's resisting that. So you're staying really upright and you can feel all this activation on this side. So it's a great way of strengthening the core. Exhale, inhale. Now you might want to go a little bit higher. If your shoulders feel okay with it, can you come higher up? If you want to stay lower, that's absolutely fine. Keep the band at a tension that makes you feel you're working your core. Exhale up, inhale down. So growing taller out of the hips. And if you've got weights, this should be doing exactly the same thing, just adding in that little bit of resistance. One more, breath out and in. Now while we're here, we're going to bring the hand forwards. Could you just give me some little bicep curls just up to the shoulder? I'm going to tighten that band up again. I want a bit more pull. So you can grip if you want to, but remember we're not gripping with the thumb, grip with the fingers and palm. We're going for 4 more, and 3, and 2, and 1. Okay, fantastic. Let's take that band out from underneath the foot. Before we do the other side, let's get those legs moving again. So they've stayed still a bit here, haven't they? So let's just take the band across the palms, dumb weighted position so the elbows are next to the rib cage but not in it. And we're just going to go into some foot pedals. So I want you to just hold the band for now. So back to your foot pedals, let's keep that circulation going. We've stood still a little while. Let's do 2 more each foot. One more. Okay, we're ready for dumb waiter. Let's take a breath in. Exhale, pull the band. Remember, you can do this without if you need to. Shoulder injuries, could you please work to your injured side? So we're going to work for symmetry and try and get that side catching up. We're not going to work through pain. Just check while you're standing, are your arches lifted? So we've got the knees aligned. Let's do 2 more. Palms are facing the ceiling. Last one. And release. Let's pop that band underneath the other foot. And again, we're always going to make sure it's secure before we do anything. Back to that good standing posture. And it's draw the sword to begin with. So wrap those fingers around, grab it with the fingers and palm onto the hip bone, and just making sure this shoulder is back and lined up. Let's take a breath in. Exhale, pull up to the rib cage, elbow out to the side. Inhale down. You can change your resistance if you need to. Or are you maintaining a long neck on this side? Keep the shoulder down. Elbow going straight out to the side where you can see it, just in your peripheral vision. Hip bone to ribs. So it is right at the front of that pelvis rather than on the top of the hip. It's actually in the curve of the hip here, so we get a good range of movement. Last 2. And just 1 more. Okay, let's swap hands. Palm forwards. Standing tall, let's lift out of those hips and take a breath in. Exhale, we're coming up, shoulder height if you can. Can you feel how that other side switches on? So if we keep growing taller as we do this, you'll feel much more activation. And just check, I should have mentioned this on the other side actually, that your arm is going out to the side and not in front of you. You want it right there at the side. If you feel like your shoulder will allow you to go higher, maybe you need to loosen that band. If you've got weight, you can just go for it. Can you take that arm higher? and back down. Let's do 2 more. And one last one. Exhale, we're coming up, and inhale, back down. Brilliant. Right, so from there, I'm going to step off that band, and we're going to take it into a loop now. So what I'd like you to do is, if you've got weights, this is just fine to do with the weights, although it will feel a little bit different. You're going to tie it into a knot. Now don't tie it too tight, because you need to undo it again later. You want that knot about halfway down, okay, so that we've got a small loop. If you've done this in class with me, you'll know what we're doing next. It's going over the forearms. Now this is shoulder work. So we're going to start off by just pushing the shoulder blades wide and feeling a bit of tension. So you're going to lead with the elbow, okay, and the wrists stay aligned. We're going to start by just pushing down and bringing it back in. Push it forwards and in. So as though you're putting something on a shelf just down there in front of you. Could you put it on a slightly higher shelf? So you've got hold of a box, you're just putting it on that shelf. Are you still pressing out wide with those shoulders? Okay, can you go a bit higher? Can you keep the shoulders down? We're reaching for that high shelf now. Push. So if shoulders don't like this, come back down to a lower shelf. One more. And release. Okay, let's add that to our monkey squat. So we're going to step a little bit wider now. Still parallel with the feet, arches are still lifted. And we're going to start off low again. So let's hinge. Put that box on a low shelf and back in. If you've still got that tension on, let's work those shoulders. Remember, if your shoulders aren't liking this, do it without the band. It's still a great functional movement. A little bit higher if you can. One more at this height. Now, can you put it on a higher shelf without the tops of the shoulders activating? So think, can you reach up and put it on that high shelf? Still working from the same place. One last one. And in. Fantastic. Okay, time to undo that knot. So let's just take that apart. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to step onto it. So you want a loop and you want the band going across your hand. I've just realised. Step onto it. Missed out our bicep curls, didn't we? So that's second side. Let's pull up. Can't have you going out wonky. Let's do 4 more. Couple more. Knew there was something. There we go. Right. Okay, we're symmetrical again. Right, let's grab that band. It's going across the palms. Grab it with the fingers and palm again rather than the thumbs, so the thumbs just rest on top. And we're going to step both feet on now. So just push the band apart slightly, give it a little bit of a stretch with your feet. Okay, now we're going to go into hinge forward position as though we were going to do a monkey squat. And we're going to pull up. So pull the hands up to the ribs. Can you keep your little toes pressing down? 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Now, cross your band over. Okay, I'm going to shuffle around, try not to ping this band off. Now, you want back of the hand facing away from you, and we've crossed the band over, so you've swapped hands now, and you're going to come into that same hinge. But now we're going to pull up and wide. Can you get a little bit of a shoulder blade squeeze? Chin nodded. So you're pulling your hands up and the elbows are going out to the side, squeezing the shoulder blades together slightly. If it helps, you can soften your knees and come into a little squat if that feels better on your knees. It might also take some pressure off your lower back if you're feeling that there. Two more, pull up and down, one last one, and release. Okay, let's step off that band. We're going to come down onto the mats now. We're coming down into kneeling, so bring yourself safely down. If you'd rather do this sat in a chair, grab yourself a chair and you're going to pop the band, you're going to pop the band around your foot, so you're going to be leaning on your chair. So what we're going to be doing is pinpoint arms and legs. So we're going to take the band around the foot. Now can you make sure that that band is around your arch? You're going to thread one end through the middle of your legs and the other end is coming around the outside. Now grab that band. Take the hands down, make sure you're firmly anchored. We've got shoulders over wrists, hips over your knees, spine is in neutral. Let's just hold it there for a moment. Check our posture. Let's do a quick cat curl. Can you take a breath in for me? And then exhale, tuck under. Think of lifting up to the bottom of the ribs. And then back down. Can you draw your shoulder blades down your back towards your hips and lift your chest away from the floor? Now let's find the middle point and ensuring our head isn't dropped down or chin craning and lifting. Now keep that foot flexed or you're going to get a nasty surprise. Take a breath in. Now exhale, push that toe along the floor, push out to straighten the leg, bring it back in. Push out. And in. Now I'm only using a light band here. Now if you've got weights, so you haven't got a band to use for this, you could maybe come into pinpoint arms and legs and lift the opposite arm to challenge yourself. You might also want to add in that lift if you know how to do it and you've done it safely with me in class. Let's do two more. And one last one. And in. Now, safest way to change over is to just pop your other foot in. Make sure you're round the arch. Take the other leg out. Back to that position. Foot stays flexed. Take a breath in. Now let's exhale, push out. Inhale in. Are your hip bones staying pointing down at the floor? We're keeping this going. Keep that head lifted, so the back of the head lifted, not the chin. It might be tempting because you're putting so much effort in elsewhere to just drop that head down and forget about it. Try and maintain that really good posture. Let's do two more. And one last one. And in. Okay, brilliant. Let's take that band out. Okay, now we're going to take it underneath the hands. So you're going to want more tail on one side than the other. It doesn't matter which side you're starting with. So it might be an idea for you to just watch and then you can concentrate on the movement when you're down in this position without you having to turn your head and compromise that lovely posture that you've been working on. So we've got one hand on, nice and firm, fingers and thumb closed. Give it a pull, check it's in securely, and we're going to take that band, lift, without the shoulders turning. Keep your shoulders pointing at the floor. We're going to pull round to the hip. Okay, so bring yourselves into that position. Core switched on. We've got length in the spine, chin down. So we're going to lift that hand. Doesn't have to come up to shoulder height, just give it a little bit of a lift. Pull it round to the hip and recover. Keep it going, pull round and back. So keep that going for me. If you feel confident to, you could extend the opposite leg as well. You could, if you're feeling really brave, lift that leg as you bring the band round. Can you give me 2 more on this side? So strong breath out as you move, that's your last one. And then coming up onto the knees. Let's give those wrists a roll before we do the other side. Let's roll them round the other way, so you're just rolling on the top of the hip bones. Okay, so we know what we're doing now. We can come to the other side. I'm going to turn myself around. Okay, so hand on. Give it a pull, make sure it's secure, and then just checking that we're in the right position here. Let's go to that cat curl, tuck under, zipping up through the abdominals, back down, draw the shoulders back, start to lift the heart, come back to neutral, chin is nodded. Okay, let's take that band, give it a pull out to the side, pulling it back to the hip. You've got your chest still square to the floor. If you're using your weights, of course you can use them for this. Keep that going for me. Do you feel confident enough to take that opposite leg out? As you do so, could you lift that leg? Making sure that we keep the spine neutral. Exhale. Could you give me 2 last ones? Breath out as you reach round. 1 last one, exhaling. And then again, we're going to come up onto the knees and just roll the wrists. Fantastic. Okay, from there we are going to come down onto our backs. So this might be where, if you lie down and you feel your chin is really lifted, it's very uncomfortable, you struggle to get your head on the floor, grab as much support as you need, so a cushion or 2. If you don't need it, we always try and do without. So making sure abdominals are safe, back is safe, use your hands for support. We're coming down onto the back and we're going to pop the band just to the side for now. Could you roll your shoulders open for me? Opening the chest and resting onto the little fingers. So the chin is nodded, we're looking more at the ceiling in front of us than behind. Is your bottom rib on the mat? Just see if you can get that connection. Shoulder blades are down, rib cage down. And then we've got a little arch in the small of the back so that the pelvis is sitting level. So if we thought about a triangle between the pubic bone and the hip bones, like the triangle on a snooker table, it's sitting level. Now we're going to place an imaginary marble halfway between the pubic bone and the tummy button. It's just sitting right there. Now, without a big effort and without pulling in at the waistband, okay, what I'd like you to do is take a breath out. So we're not forcing this movement. Can you just roll that marble towards your tummy button? So you just feel the pelvis dip into the mat, and then let's roll it back to where it was, sitting in the middle of that triangle. Exhale, we're rolling it towards the tummy button and back again. So if you do feel like you're just pulling in at the waistband, maybe Don't put so much effort into it, just let it move naturally and just see if you get more of the muscles activating. So it's not a huge effort, we're just taking it very gently, we're not pressing into the mat, and release. Okay, now we're back to sitting level. Could you think about the pressure in the back of the pelvis? You might feel two bony bits that are kind of sat there that you can feel a bit more than the rest, and it should feel even across those two. Now we're not going to lift the hip, but could you just roll the marble to one hip bone, so feel it dip into the mat on one side and then roll it back to the middle. Could you dip it to the other side, roll the marble to the other hip bone? And it's okay to let the knees move a little, that's fine, they have to. So they're dipping, one knee kind of goes away from you and up a bit, the other knee comes towards you. Just a tiny movement, rolling from one hip bone to the other and keeping that breath flowing nice and gently. Now, let's see if we can roll the marble to one hip bone. From there, can you roll it towards your tummy button? Can you roll it round to the other hip bone and back to the middle? Now let's go the other way. So always make sure that you're centred, you've got the same pressure on each side before you move again. To the hip bone, opposite way, towards the tummy button. Round to the other hip. And centre. Let's reverse to the hip bone. How's that feeling for you? It's just nice and gentle. We're not really putting a huge amount of effort in here, we're just activating. Let's go one more time to the hip bone, towards the tummy button, to the other hip, and the middle. So even pressure on both sides now. From there we're going to go into a shoulder bridge now. Spinal issues, particularly disc issues, if you've been told to keep it movement very small, you're only going to come up to your rib cage. Same if you've had to prop your head, okay, you're only going to come up to your rib cage. Osteoporosis, osteopenia, just to the rib cage, no higher. Let's make sure those shoulders are open. So we're all going to go to the rib cage, and then some of you might come higher if it's appropriate for you. Let's roll that marble towards your tummy button. Now can you push your heels into the floor and start to lift the hips? Push the heels down. Now just come to the bottom of your rib cage, take a breath in. Let's take a breath out, lower back down and roll that marble back to the middle. Let's do that again. Rolling towards the tummy button. Press into the heels, push down and just come to the bottom of the rib cage. And back down. Now stay here if it's more appropriate for you. So I've just mentioned those groups: osteoporosis, osteopenia, certain disc issues, or if your head is propped on cushions. Otherwise, can you go a little bit higher for me? Can you roll towards your tummy button, push into the heels and start to send your knees forwards. Lift, push down through those heels, take a breath in at the top, and then can you exhale to curl back down. Now let's think about that marble. We want it to settle into the tummy button before we roll it back to the middle. So maybe you're getting a bit more movement in that lower back now. Let's do one more. Towards the tummy button, push into the heels, send the knees forwards, pushing, and then curling all the way back down. and back to neutral. Okay, from there, we're going to take the arms a little bit wider and palms up. Hip replacements and certain pelvic issues, if it feels uncomfortable for you to have feet together, you're going to stay feet hip distance. If it's appropriate for you, can you bring feet and knees together? We're going into knee drops, so again, I want you to make sure that marble stays in the middle. Think of keeping even pressure across the back of the pelvis. Let's roll onto the side of the foot and drop the knee out to the side. And pull back up. Changing sides. So dropping out, keep that marble still. And pulling back up. Make sure you keep your breath flowing. Try to notice if you begin to hold your breath. Now, there's no real right or wrong with the breathing in this one. You might find it's more effort to control the knee as it's dropping down. In which case, exhale there, and it's going to help you to control that movement. So dropping down and coming back up. Could you also start to notice for me if you're gripping at the hip to do this? If you are, could you think about pushing your heel into the floor a little more? And that will help to switch those muscles off a little bit if they're just gripping a bit too hard. So think of pressing the heel into the floor as you roll over. And up, we're going to take one last one. And up. Wonderful. Now if your feet and knees are together, could you just step them back to hip distance for me? Making sure that knees and feet are all lined up and you haven't got your feet wider and your knees dropped in. We want everything lined up, shoulders are open, resting onto the little finger. Now think about keeping that marble in the centre again. Can you slide one leg out? Breath in. Exhale, draw it back in. Is that marble staying still? Let's go to the other side. Inhale. And exhale. Now if it feels okay for you and it doesn't bring on any sciatic symptoms, can you flex the foot? You point your toes towards you, pull them back, and then release and draw back in. So we stretch the toes, it moves away, and then we flex the foot, push the heel forwards, relax and draw back in. So if it is bringing on sciatic symptoms, just leave the foot relaxed. Now, if it feels good for you, could you lift that leg, keep pushing the heel away, lower it back down, and draw it back in. Changing sides, stay on the floor if you need to. So especially if you feel anything push up or bulge in the centre, or if you have a prolapse or a hernia and this is going to aggravate it, because it is more effort on the abdominals. Let's glide out, inhale, flex and exhale to lift, down and back in. Last one, glide out. Marble is sitting in the middle, it's not moving. Down and back in. Wonderful. From there, we're going to roll over onto the side. Use your hand and a breath out to push up, and we're going to come back up onto the knees. Okay, so from there, coming up safely. If a squat doesn't feel safe for you, just come up whichever way is best, but if you can, could you tuck your toes? Take your hands to the side of your knees. Push down now, lengthen that spine. Squats don't have rounded spines, do they? I'm pushing up. Fantastic. Right, back to hip distance. Arm across the chest or up and over. Let's take a reach and a stretch. And down. Changing side, reach and stretch. And down. Now let's give those shoulders a stretch, we'll give them a roll. Could you clasp those hands together behind your back and just stretch and open the chest? And then we'll round the arms in front, nod the chin and stretch across the back of the shoulders. Take a breath into that stretch. And then if you can, take the arms up before releasing and open out. And very well done. Thank you for joining me this morning. I hope you enjoyed that. So if you'd like more resistance band work or weights or Pilates ball, just let me know and we'll try and add those in. But it's just nice to have something a little bit different to do and a prop to use. So please do enjoy the rest of your day. Have a wonderful day, stay safe, and tonight it is our antenatal class on the stability ball. However, if any of you do have a stability ball and you want a low level class, you just want to join in, it's actually just a great class for anyone. Okay, so take care and see you soon.